I almost ruined my Europe trip, and the worst part is that I didn't even realize I was doing it. Before arriving in Europe, I had this idea that I needed to see everything. Every city, every attraction, every famous place. I told myself I had to make every minute count. But the harder I tried to experience everything, the less I was actually enjoying any of it. And it wasn't until later that I realized I had made a mistake that almost ruined the entire trip. In this video, I'll tell you what that mistake was, and why I wish someone had warned me about it before I ever stepped on the plane. Before I arrived in Europe, I had a plan. A very ambitious plan. I wanted to see everything. Not just the famous places. Everything. The landmarks. The cities. The hidden gems. The experiences I had spent years watching online. I told myself this was my chance. And I didn't want to waste a single moment of it. So before the trip even started, I was already filling my schedule. One place after another. One activity after another. One city after another. At the time, it felt like the smart thing to do. After all, who knows when you'll get another chance to visit Europe? I thought the more I could fit into the trip, the better the trip would be. And honestly, during the first few days, that plan felt amazing. I was seeing incredible places, taking photos, exploring streets I had dreamed about for years. Every day felt productive, every day felt successful, and I remember feeling proud of myself. Proud that I was making the most of the opportunity. But what I didn't realize was that something dangerous was slowly happening in the background. Something that had nothing to do with Europe itself, and everything to do with how I was approaching the trip. Because while I was busy trying to experience everything, I wasn't paying attention to what it was costing me. And in the next chapter, I'll show you the first signs that my perfect plan was starting to become a problem. At first, I didn't notice anything was wrong. In fact, I thought the trip was going exactly as planned. I was checking things off my list, seeing famous places, taking photos, moving from one destination to the next. But after a while, something started changing. I wasn't slowing down long enough to enjoy where I was. Instead of experiencing a city, I was thinking about the next city. Instead of enjoying the moment, I was thinking about the next item on my schedule. And slowly, without realizing it, the trip started feeling less like an adventure, and more like a task. Every morning I woke up with another list. Another train, another attraction, another place I felt I had to see. The pressure was completely self-created. Nobody was forcing me to do any of it. I was doing it to myself. Because in my mind, slowing down felt like wasting time. And wasting time felt unacceptable. After all, I was in Europe. I told myself I needed to make every second count. But the harder I chased that goal, the more exhausted I became. Physically, mentally, even emotionally. And then one day, I found myself standing in front of a place I had dreamed about visiting for years. A place I was supposed to be excited about. And instead, all I could think about was how tired I felt. That was the moment I realized something wasn't right. And in the next chapter, I'll show you the moment I finally understood how much this mistake was costing me. The moment it finally hit me wasn't dramatic. Nothing went wrong. I didn't miss a train. I didn't lose my luggage. There wasn't some major travel disaster. That's what made it so surprising. I was standing in a place I had wanted to visit for years. A place I had seen in photos. A place I had imagined countless times before the trip. And yet, I wasn't excited. I wasn't amazed. I wasn't fully present. I was just tired, completely exhausted, and for a moment, I caught myself doing something that shocked me. I was looking forward to leaving. Not because the place was disappointing, but because I had turned the trip into a race. A race to see more. A race to do more. A race that never seemed to end. And standing there, I realized something uncomfortable. I had spent so much time trying to collect experiences, that I wasn't actually experiencing them. Every beautiful place became another item to check off. Every city became another destination to complete. Every day became another challenge to get through. The trip I had dreamed about for years was starting to feel like work. That realization hit hard, because I knew the problem wasn't Europe. The problem wasn't the itinerary. The problem was me, or more specifically, the pressure I had put on myself. The pressure to make every moment perfect. The pressure to see everything. The pressure to never slow down. And that's when I realized something had to change. Because if I kept going like this, I wasn't going to remember the trip for the places I visited. I was going to remember it for how exhausted I felt. And in the next chapter, I'll show you the decision that completely changed the rest of the trip. The next morning, I made a decision. Not a big decision, not a dramatic decision, just a simple one. I decided to stop trying to do everything. At first, that felt uncomfortable, because a part of me kept saying, what if you miss something? What if you never come back? What if you're wasting an opportunity? But another part of me was exhausted. Exhausted from rushing. Exhausted from chasing the next thing. Exhausted from treating every day like a competition. So for the first time during the trip, I gave myself permission to slow down. And something surprising happened. The trip immediately started feeling different. I spent more time in fewer places. I stopped checking my schedule every few minutes. I stopped worrying about what I wasn't seeing, and started paying attention to what was right in front of me. Instead of rushing through a city, I walked more slowly. Instead of trying to fit 5 experiences into one afternoon, I focused on one, and the strange thing was, I actually started enjoying Europe more, not because I was doing more, but because I was finally present. I noticed details I would have missed before. Small moments, conversations, unexpected experiences, things that never make it onto a travel checklist. And that's when I realized something important. The best parts of the trip weren't the things I had planned. They were the moments I finally had space to experience. Moments that would have passed me by if I had kept rushing. That simple decision didn't just change the rest of the trip. It changed the way I travel entirely. And in the next chapter, I'll share the lesson I wish someone had told me before I ever booked that flight to Europe. Looking back now, I realize the biggest mistake I made in Europe had nothing to do with trains. Nothing to do with hotels. Nothing to do with directions. The biggest mistake was believing that more automatically meant better. More cities, more attractions, more experiences, more photos, more everything. I thought that was how you got the most out of a trip. But I couldn't have been more wrong. Because the value of a trip isn't measured by how much you see. It's measured by how much you actually experience. And those are not the same thing. You can visit 10 cities and barely remember them. Or you can spend meaningful time in one place and remember it for the rest of your life. The moments I remember most from Europe aren't the moments I rushed through. They're the moments I slowed down enough to notice. A conversation, a view, a quiet walk through a street I'd never seen before. A simple moment that wasn't even on my itinerary. Those are the memories that stayed with me. And that's why I wish someone had told me this before my trip. You do not have to do everything. You do not have to see everything. You do not have to maximize every second. Because when you spend the entire trip chasing the next experience, you risk missing the one you're already having. And once I understood that, travel became so much more enjoyable. Not because I started seeing more, but because I finally started appreciating more. That lesson changed how I travel. And honestly, it changed how I approach life too. When I look back on that Europe trip today, I don't remember every attraction. I don't remember every train ride. I don't remember every item I checked off my list. What I remember are the moments I was actually present for. The moments where I stopped rushing. The moments where I wasn't thinking about where I needed to be next. The moments where I simply allowed myself to experience where I already was. And that's why I wanted to share this story. Because I know how easy it is to fall into the same trap. You save money, you plan for months, you finally get the opportunity to travel. And naturally, you want to make the most of it. But sometimes, trying to make the most of it is exactly what prevents you from enjoying it. The mistake that almost ruined my Europe trip wasn't getting lost. It wasn't missing a train. It wasn't booking the wrong hotel. It was believing that every moment had to be maximized. And the moment I let go of that idea, everything changed. So if you're planning a trip to Europe, or honestly, any big adventure in life, remember this. You don't have to do everything. You don't have to see everything. You don't have to prove that every second was productive. Sometimes the best experiences happen when you slow down enough to notice them. And if you've ever made a mistake while traveling that taught you an important lesson, tell me about it in the comments. I'd love to hear your story. And if you enjoyed this video, subscribe, because next week I'm sharing another Europe travel lesson that completely changed how I experience new places. I'll see you in the next video.